Hi everyone, Stepan here. In today's test I have two positions from my training games which I'm ashamed of. They're going to be easier than the positions you solved usually. Easier, well, I messed up both of them. I blundered in both of them. So hopefully either you correct my play correctly, play well, understand the position, or you learn the basics which I've learned after this game, or reinforce your knowledge. I'm really unhappy with how I played in both positions. So in the first position, this is an endgame from the pawn of Caro-Kann, in which white gets the doubled f-pawns. I'm going to show you the opening briefly. Anyway, pause the video, solve the first position, find a good plan for black. Correct my play, please. Okay, see you in a minute. Good luck. Okay, so before we jump into the position, I just want to show you this endgame. So this starts after white plays knight f3 in the Panov and black plays bishop g4, which in my opinion is the best move. And this endgame is basically forced. If you don't know it, you should know it if you play e4 or if you play the Caro-Kann. And here after queen d7, the main move is either knight d5 or queen d7. Knight d5 is better. My opponent made a slight error with bishop to g5, but that doesn't matter. Basically, you reach an endgame in which white has an isolated d5 pawn, black, has an isolated d5 pawn and has to deal with the pressure on a7. White has the doubled f pawns, should be roughly equal, but I usually do well in this endgame because I know it. So anyway, I played one tournament game in it and I won. Coming back to the position at hand, so from this endgame we reach the position where we have bishops of the same color, which usually favors the side that's attacking, or in the case of endgames, it usually favors the side that has more targets. So here neither side really has any palpable targets. The b4 pawn can be dissolved with b5 at any point, probably ending in a draw. The f2 pawn isn't really a target because white can defend it in several ways while keeping his bishop active, as you can see on d4. What to do here? Well, if you understand one major strength black has in this position, then you win. I didn't understand it, unfortunately, and here's what I did. I managed to lose this position, and here is how. I played bishop to d6, and the idea behind bishop d6 was I want to put my bishop either on e5 or on f4. My opponent played bishop f6, which I'd expected, keeping e5 under control, and I played bishop to f4. After king to d4, I can still play the winning idea, but I'd still messed it up, and you're going to see it in a minute. It still works here. I played g4, which is an idiotic move. Basically, I was afraid of pushing b5. I take on b5 twice and he takes on d5, and a simple draw, maybe even better for white. I couldn't calculate all the way through. So for example, if I play bishop to d2, which seems sensible, then takes. If I go king d6, then bishop e6, bishop e5. If I take, then takes, and this pawn is under tremendous pressure. This I think is better for white. So after king d4, I played g4, dissolving the pawns, going into a drawn endgame. He played bishop h4, and here I as soon as I played this move, I wanted to throw up. So I played king to d6. Hopefully you can see why this is a blunder. He plays bishop to g3 and is just winning. This is just winning. I have to take the bishop. So once I take, I have to play king c6, and he just plays king e5, and this is a winning pawn endgame. Nothing works here. I only have one move. I can only play a5, and after a5, ba5, I resigned because it's lost. Anyway, getting my bishop here or here doesn't really do anything. Should end in a draw. The winning idea is remarkable, and when someone says solve this, it's pretty easy to see it. The winning idea is h4. And this may seem counterintuitive. What I wanted to do with with h5 was prevent f4. But I never really thought of this plan, and the plan is simply push g4 and create a passed pawn on the h file. There's absolutely nothing he can do about it. So there are two sensible moves, bishop e3 and bishop e5. Bishop e5 seems more logical, but after bishop e5, I just play bishop d6. He can defend the bishop, fine, but I just take on e5. King takes e5 and I play g4, and this is winning. He can throw in, I don't know, fg, maybe even this. That doesn't really matter. In any case, doesn't really matter. This is just a winning position. The other move after h4 is bishop to e3, after which black just plays g4. And fg4, fg4, ag4, h3, bishop f4, again, bishop d6, and white resigns. So yeah, this, normally I see pawn breaks and winning pawn break ideas. I didn't see it in this game. The painful thing is that I didn't even think of it. Hopefully you did see it. Okay, yeah, and just I want to show you that after bishop d6, what I played in the game, and bishop f6 and bishop f4 and king to d4, I still could win easily with g4. It's still the same thing. Excuse me, with h4. What can he do here? He can play b5, ab5, king d6, and let's say b6, I just go g4. There's nothing to prevent me from queening, so I'd missed it twice. Okay, second position. Slightly less painful than the first one, but still extremely painful. I had about 2 minutes on the clock at this point, which is not enough for me when there's a complex position at hand, unfortunately. Okay, pause the video, find a good plan for black. Good luck, see you in a minute. Okay, this position is even simpler than the first one. And again, black is just winning. Black is winning on the spot. Let's just look at what I did first and how I managed to mess this wonderful position up. Well, the first thing we can see is that this rook is sort of tied down to defending the h-pawn, and it's also tied down to defending the e-pawn. So rook g4 unfortunately doesn't work because he takes with check on e6 and it's a draw. So I only have two options basically. I can play king b5 or I can play h4. I played king b5, and after king b5 this is a completely drawn position because I'd missed my calculation for one tempo. He plays rook h1, fine, that I'd expected. I played rook h6, fine. And here he played king g3. I don't really think it matters what he plays, but this probably is the best idea because he needs to get in here and take the e6 pawn, and there's nothing I can do about it. So now taking on b4 was my idea, so I did it. He could try cutting my king off, and that also I think works. Rook c1 also works, but he played king h4, which is better. King c4. And in this position, I'm not in time to defend the e6 pawn. He just plays rook to d1, and there is nothing I can do. Here, this is what I was banking on. I was banking on rook to g6, king takes, and here. But unfortunately, this is what I'd missed. My king is not defending the e6 pawn. He just plays rook d6, and we can agree to a draw. So in the game, I played king c5, trying to reach my e6 pawn. He played king g5, rook h8, king f6, and draw. This is just a draw. I can win his rook, but that doesn't matter because he just wins my rook back. Okay, now for the winning plan. Okay, the winning plan is h4, and I'm sure you saw it. Because with h4, my rook has a wonderful square on g4, which is now defended, and his rook now has to move. If it doesn't move, then I'm just going to take the b4 pawn, and he doesn't have king g3, king h4 anymore, which is crucial. So his king is not coming in, and he's sort of in Zugzwang, whatever he does. I mean, if... I don't know, it's pretty hard to suggest moves. rook h1 I think is the best move. So I just go rook g3 check, chasing the king away, and I go rook g4. Pressure here, pressure here. He probably has to play king f3 to defend the pawn, and now I go king b5, and there's nothing he can do about it. If he plays rook b1, which is the only logical move, then I simply go rook to g7. And after rook to g7, I don't know what to suggest. He doesn't have any moves. This is sort of a waiting move. So let's say rook h1 back. I don't want to take the pawn because I lose my pawn, but I just throw in king g3, king f2, rook g4, and now both pawns are attacked. No way to defend. That was a wonderful case of Zugzwang, which hopefully you saw. And now after, for example, rook b1, just rook takes f4. So I saw h4. But I discarded it because I didn't see this waiting move. I thought it was just a draw. Coming back to this position, I couldn't see how to make progress. Obviously, the progress can be made by simply moving my rook, because that's the only piece I can move. But yeah, I failed to see it. So, in my opinion, these were two very instructive positions, at least for me. Because obviously, I lost one game, drew the other, and I was a million points ahead. I was completely winning in both. So losing and drawing one endgames is not good. Okay, hopefully you learned something from this. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you found both ideas and how quickly you did manage to find them. I'd really like to know. Okay, thank you for watching. Yeah, again, and stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.